Hello, my beautiful friend, and welcome back to another episode on Challenge Your Norm podcast. My name is Pranella, and I am your friend and your host on this podcast. And today I'm actually really excited to talk to you about failure. I want to share with you some times in my life where I feel, or at least felt like I was failing in that moment, in that instance, and how it's kept me moving towards the goals that I actually wanted in my life that I wasn't aware of at the time. And we're going to talk about some financial difficulties, some work-related stuff, relationships where I feel like I failed, and also one specific time where I feel like failure led me towards understanding the power of my brain and how I really am in charge of everything and anything that I feel at any given moment. And the reason I want to talk to you about this is because maybe you feel like you've just gone through a failure and it's keeping you stuck, maybe in complain mode or feeling sorry for yourself, or just constantly coming up with excuses because you went through this failure. And my hope is that today it's going to give you a little bit of a new perspective, a little bit of a new way of thinking about that failure, because failure has truly been the greatest thing that have happened in my life. It is what has made me make a shift inside my brain, which then has led me to massive changes in my life. Okay, before we get started, I am currently still in Mexico. If you haven't listened to my other episodes, I have recently taken on a little bit of a digital nomad life situation. So I left my apartment and I've been in Mexico for 11 days now. And I'm flying to New York tomorrow. So today's my final day. And is it bad? I want to ask you, is it bad that I want to go to New York and then I want to fly straight back here? I just love it so much. Also, I have been in so much of a workflow here. So I feel like I haven't gotten to experience all the things that I wanted to experience here. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm debating. If I should just come straight back here. And I think it's kind of a mix of now I've told the world I'm going to be a digital nomad and I'm going to travel the world. And it's the expectations of okay, where should I go next? But then on the inside, I'm but wait, I just kind of want to go back here. I think, you know what? I think just sharing this with you guys, I just made up my mind that I probably am going to come back to Mexico. Thank you for listening to that. Now let's get into today's episode talking about failure. I am not sure how much you have listened to my other podcast or my YouTube videos where I've shared a lot about my past. I moved to, or at least I traveled to Los Angeles when I was 20 years old. I turned 21 quickly thereafter, but it took me a while to get my visa. But at first I was just there and trying to figure it all out, getting relationships, trying to prep things for my visa, which took years, because getting a visa in the US, if you are a dancer or just any artist that hasn't had incredible success beforehand, is a massive challenge. That's actually a story that I want to share with you and talk with you about in a different episode, because that was a full journey in itself. But not today, because the reason I mentioned that is because for the years leading up to me getting my visa and then getting into starting to slowly book jobs, that was a 4-year process, a 3 to 4 year process where I actually had that going, meaning that I had saved up money from Denmark to live for the amount of time in the US till I could get my visa and then start making money. And so I started off living at this hostel with a bunch of other dancers. It was called Home for Dancers, which, oh my gosh, it was the greatest. I lived in a room with sometimes it was 4 other people. Sometimes it was we lived in a room with 6 or 7 people. But I met so many people at that hostel. So that's where I started out. And then I moved in with some other people from that hostel. I moved to a apartment with some of the people from that hostel. And I lived on an air mattress with the girl who actually had rented a room in this apartment. So I was just living on an air mattress. And at first I was living on an air mattress with another friend on that same mattress. And I was just so grateful to be in LA. I was loving life. The fact that I could wake up and then just dance every day. I did not care that I was living on an air mattress and that I was eating ramen because I literally could not afford anything else. So I'm just sharing this to kind of give you an idea of the budget I was on, the way that I was living, and honestly just being really grateful for it. Of course, I had a fierce money mindset, And it was obviously limiting me to walk for an hour every time I wanted to take a dance class, or every time I wanted to, go grocery shopping. I would carry my groceries for a long way home and things like that. I didn't even spend money on a bus because that would be $1.75, which those money I could, eat 4 ramen meals with, So I was really on a budget. Moving on to 2019. I think it was 2019. I really believe it was 2019. In the beginning of 2019, I had been living this way for a long time. At that time, I'd got my visa and I'd slowly started getting jobs in the US. And it was jobs where, anything I could get was just amazing. Anything where I would get $10 an hour, I was just crazy grateful for. And so I would take anything I could get. But I was auditioning a lot at the time. And if you are somewhat aware of how the dance world works, it's you show up and there are it feels like there's thousands of girls that all look amazing in the same room as you, fighting for that same job where they maybe only need 3 dancers because they're already using the dancers that the artist already has been using. So it's it's a challenge to get those dance jobs. And at the time I don't even know if I mentioned that, but I moved to LA to dance and to pursue that passion. And so I was just auditioning a lot. I was taking on these little jobs, some jobs I would get, but they weren't long term. It would be you fight for so long to get this one job that takes one day. And then it's a music video where you get $500. And then that was a great rate for me at the time. And then, but people don't think about is how many auditions it took me to get that one job where I would make that money. So in 2019, I go to this audition where, there were an incredible amount of girls who auditioned for this thing, but I moved on to the callbacks and I move on to a 3rd callback. And this thing, I was wait, could I actually get this job? And this job was for a Spanish artist that would travel around the world, mostly in South America and America, which, to me, that just sounded like an amazing, incredible opportunity, a Spanish artist. And we would get paid $12,000 per month. And to me, that was just an insane amount. That was if you're used to just living on zero money, $12,000 a month is, it would change your life in a way. And also just the traveling around and working as a dancer, it all just sounded amazing. And moving on 2 months, I had been gone to so many auditions. And then I get an email saying that I am in the top, I think it was 6 girls. And they were looking to hire 3 girls because this artist needed 3 dancers. So I was in that final callback. At least that's what they said. And so I went to that final callback. It all went really well. And I got an email, maybe let's say 2 weeks later. So imagine this. It's your dream job. At least that's what you think. It's your dream job. You've been working towards this thing your entire life because I'd been dancing my whole life. And I had auditioned for so many things. And finally, there was this massive opportunity. You've been waiting all this time. You've been working so hard. You've really done so many things to finally get this. You go and you are a part of the top 6 people that they've chosen for this job. And then a week or 2 later, I get an email saying that I am in top 3, which means that first I thought I had gotten the job. But what they then wrote later in that email is that they are using 2 of the dancers from last year's tour, meaning that the 3 of us girls had just made it to the top 3. But out of the 3 of us girls, they would only choose 1. And in the email, they also said that we are going to do a fitting and that we had to meet on Rodeo Drive, which is the fancy shopping street in Beverly Hills. I think a few days later, we had to do that. And so the 3 of us meet up and we're just, eager and excited and what's going to happen, kind of supporting each other and also knowing that, 2 of us are not going to get this job after these months of auditioning and the excitement and stuff. But we walk around literally we go to so many stores and try on so many dresses, which I thought was fun because it was all the we're talking $5,000 dresses. spent the whole day doing that for free, no contracts, no nothing, after having spent an incredible amount of time for the other waiting and auditions to hopefully maybe get this job. And then, the day was gone and I went home and I was just waiting. And oh my gosh, I really, really wanted this job. I really, really wanted it. And it felt like, oh my gosh, this is my opportunity to do the thing that I've always wanted to do. A week later or so, I get an email saying that I did not get the job. And my heart broke. I was like bawling my eyes out. I was like, whoa, like, no, what is this? Like, what am I going to do with my life? Because it was just, it was my dream and it crushed. After these months of like thinking that I maybe had a chance, and to thinking that I actually got the job because we were in like the top 3 and I thought they needed 3, but then they said they only needed 1. And I'd gone through all this process. Okay. So my point of all of this is, when that happened, I was down. And also at the same time, I had left Denmark away from my family to pursue this dancing career. And I wasn't making any money, even though to my family, I always made it seem like, oh, I got it all together. Like, I got this dance job, I got this dance job, which I did. I just didn't tell them that those were the only jobs I had gotten that month and that they paid only a certain amount so I could just get by. And so I think my family had an idea of like the fact that I wasn't really making it yet. And after this happened, I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to tell my family? Because they were worried for me. In Denmark, you get free university education. And like, here I was, like, still at the time, I think I'd gotten my own room in an apartment with other people. But like, we're talking like an apartment where it's very old and dirty carpets. And like, yeah, it was not a fancy place to live, but I had gotten my own room because I'd started getting these other jobs. So the fear of like the failure, first of all, not getting this job that I thought was my dream job, and then also telling my family that I didn't get booked for that big tour. And at first I was devastated. I cried my eyes out. But then after some time, I was like, what am I going to do now? Like, this failure, like, it brought up such incredible amounts of almost like anger and like, I am going to make this thing work. What do I actually want for my life? And so I believe like either I was like just walking in nature. I don't know if I was journaling at the time. I think I did write down some thoughts of like what I wanted to do. And already before this had happened, I did come to a realization that what brings me the most fulfillment is like helping people. And that dance brings me incredible joy, but that when I was like really honest with myself, seeing myself like long-term feeling fulfilled, it would have something to do with helping others. When I was dancing at the time, I would also get fulfillment out of when I did a good job as a dancer, I would get good feedback from others. I would get like applause from others. And that still at the time was driving me incredibly, as well as the fact that I had always said I wanted to become a dancer and wanting to succeed within that. But after this happened, I really like dug deep into, okay, what am I going to do? What is it that I actually want in life? And I had just in January, we're talking like February, March of 2019. I really hope it's 2019, but whatever. In January of this same year, I started my Instagram profile. And throughout this auditioning process, I had started the Instagram profile, but I also know that if I'd gone on this tour, that wouldn't be my main thing, because the reason I started my Instagram profile was because I wanted to start like sharing with people the lessons and the things that I learned in my life, as well as like fitness tips, because fitness had just changed my life for the better in like my self-belief and all this stuff. So I started an Instagram profile in order to do that. And I knew maybe, or at least like I had this gut feeling that it could lead to something bigger and something greater, and like me actually creating a career out of helping people on a daily basis. So when this failure happened, I was like, I am going to make this helping people a thing. I want to be the person that is in charge of my own happiness and in charge of the successes that I am making in life. So that is when I went all in on like, let me do this Instagram thing, which then led me to start my YouTube, start my TikTok, start this podcast. And it has led me to today. I mean, I have never been this passionate about anything than what I am with the work that I do today. And now going back to just finishing out the story about the job, the tour that I did not book. The girl that did book, I stayed in contact with her. I was obviously so excited for her to get to experience this. And what happened was that she, on the tour, found out that one of the dancers was dating the artist. And on the tour, the artist then start hitting on this dancer that booked the job when I auditioned with her. And she was not into that. But she also obviously didn't want to be disrespectful, but she did not really be a part of that. But just the fact that the artist was hitting on her, the artist's girlfriend who had been on the tour with that artist the previous year started getting super jealous and super mad and angry and like just treating this new girl not very nicely. And the flirting from the artist's side continued, and then eventually, like, the artist wanted to do something with both his girlfriend and this new girl that booked the job, which obviously was very uncomfortable for this new girl because she was not into that. And she ended up like rejecting the artist big time to like set a stop to this thing that was going on that was very unprofessional. And so because of that, the artist ended up firing her after just, I believe, 1 or 2 months. So she actually just got to go on the tour for a few months, 1 or 2 months, and then like getting fired. And not just that she got fired, but it was also like obviously not a very fun experience for her, which, you know, that's a failure for her. And I'm sure that led her towards something greater. But just to say that maybe my angels or whatever you believe in, God, or just, I don't know, natural intelligence was looking out for me, because who knows if that would have happened something similar to me, or maybe even worse if I had gone on that tour. So it was a blessing in disguise in all ways. And I feel like all failures are. And I'm sure you right now can remind yourself of a time where you really so deeply wanted something and then it not working out, but then something else happened. And that other thing that happened today, you're just so grateful for. And if we just remind ourselves of that, the fact that sometimes we don't get things because other better, greater things are in store for us, then I think going through these failures are just going to allow us to be trusting whenever that happens. And I want to talk to you about one other time, something that happened a year later, where I still was trying to build my social media platforms and doing my best to help people, where I still had to pay my bills because I wasn't in a state yet where I was able to pay my bills through doing that. So I was still doing dance jobs. I was still doing modeling jobs. In 2020, a year later, I get a job that, like, I actually book a job that would pay me $10,000 a month, which still at the time, I mean, it's still a ton of money, but it was like a dream because I would be traveling around. I wouldn't be working that much, but I would be paid $10,000 a month. At this time, I'd just gotten married with my ex. And so we were newlyweds, but I was about to go on to this thing, traveling around. The promises were that I was going to be in LA a majority of the time. And we did start off doing the job I'm not allowed to share a lot about this job because I signed certain contracts. So just know that that's why I'm keeping out a lot of information, but I can give you a little bit of an idea of what was going on in my life at the time. So I start this job. I loved it. It was great. And we started off in LA, but then we had to travel to Atlanta because there was some stuff there. And I was in Atlanta for 2 weeks. It was amazing. And then COVID lockdowns started happening. And so I got a little worried because I was away from my partner at the time. And I was like, wait, if we go into lockdown, then I would be stuck here in Atlanta. Like, that's probably not good. I just got married and obviously I missed the guy. Like, but I also, this job was a big deal to me. It was like a dream come true. I finally wasn't in, I want to say finances to me does not determine my happiness. I have been poor and incredibly fulfilled and happy. And I have been financially very stable and like abundant, I would say, and not very fulfilled and happy. So that's a topic for a separate video, but I just wanted to mention that as I'm talking about money, that money does not determine my happiness, but money does make me feel, I guess, like not worry about money. So that's really like the thing. It's like getting this job for $10,000 finally made me like feel safe within my financial situation and not have to like feel worried or feel like I had to, wonder where's my next paycheck gonna come from. So it did make me feel like finally like I could fully put my focus into other things and not have to worry about paying rent. And yes, I just got married, but I never ever wanted to, or neither still want to be spending other people's money. Like I want to make my own money. Like I know that I can. So why would I ever do that? So that was something that was very important to me. So it didn't matter to me whether I was single or I was married. Like I was going to make my successes myself. Like that's always been a thing. So I am really talking all over the place today. I hope you're following along. But I got this job and doing the job, lockdown happened. And I'm like, I have to go home in case this happens. And my boss allowed that to happen for a few days. So I went home for a few days. And then while I was there, we realized, okay, this might actually be a thing where we can't travel. And my boss asked if I would be willing to lock down in Atlanta because that's where the job would be. But I just got married and I was like, wait, I can't leave my relationship for like, I don't know how long this is going to be. And also like, I don't know if it would be safe to be in Atlanta. Like there's so many worries when a pandemic comes out and you're like, wait, what in the world? If I'd been, single and free, I probably would have done it. But at the time it was just, it just felt like not the right thing to do, to lock down in a different city and like away from anyone and everyone that I know. So the job ends up like, I wasn't able to keep on working. And that meant once again, I was on like zero income because there was no dance jobs at the time. There was no modeling jobs at the time because COVID didn't really allow people to be in the same room, especially not in the beginning. I feel like it was very strict. Everything kind of just closed down, and dancing and modeling had been my main source of income that whole past year. My past life. When I was younger, I worked in bakeries. I worked in like ice cream shops. I was a nanny. I was like all different kinds of things. But like the last years, my source of income had been from dancing and modeling. And so at the time, like, everything closed down and I was not able to make any money. I had just obviously worked for a little bit for this contract. And so I was safe in the sense that I definitely had saved all of that up and that would help me live for the next few months. And when that happened, another failure, lost the job of my dreams and $10,000 coming in every month. When that happened, once again, I got reminded, what is it actually that I want to do? And again, those voices came up in my head. You want to help people. You want to make a living out of like working for yourself and helping people. And so when that happened, first, I was devastated, just like last time when I had lost that other job. But after a while, I was like, get your life together, Pernilla. And so I went all in. I decided I was going to create ebooks. I was going to go all in on my Instagram. I was going to go all in on my YouTube and on TikTok as well. And I wanted to make that like I wanted to start my own business. I wanted to work for myself and help people in any way that I could. And I wanted to continue to grow so that I would be able to help people. Because obviously you can't help people if you aren't growing yourself, if you don't have anything to give. So I just went head down, created my first ebook, which led to like, I think 6 ebooks. And that did help me make a living eventually after a few months. And then obviously like it made me be able to pay rent, but it wasn't really more than that. And then it was just like a process from there. And since then, doing the ebooks led me to create an app, and it led me to a year or two later, make my YouTube do well, which YouTube today is like oh my gosh, I love YouTube. And that's like what I want to do. I feel like I can bring so much value on YouTube. But honestly, after starting podcasts, I love podcasting. I mean, equally as much, I would say. That's actually just a revolution that just happened to me there, because just sitting here in my bed chatting with you about like failures and what I've learned from it just brings me so much joy. But YouTube started to take off, and I realized how much you can make a living out of that on top of like the other sources of income. So all of that to say that the failures, in the sense that I didn't get those jobs, really led me to a career that is more fulfilling than anything else I could have ever imagined. I'm realizing as I get older that I love dancing. I really do. But a lot of it has also come from seeking validation and me always saying that I wanted to dance, and people telling me that, oh, you're so good when I dance. And I based a lot of my self-worth on what other people thought of my dancing, which is very interesting. But I think a lot of us base our self-worth on what other people think of us. And in this process of me building my own business and going down this really challenging path of creating that, because it's not been, that in itself has not been easy, but because I've had so much passion towards it, it has been like a dream, even though like I've put in 16-hour days most days and not had weekends like ever. I still don't really have weekends. Even though it's been a path like that, it has taught me how strong I am, how capable I am, and really given me a sense of how I feel about myself is how I determine my self-worth. They say, what is it that say? That your self-worth is based on how well you keep the promises that you make to yourself. And that's really something that I have learned to do in this process. Also in the process of like my fitness journey, I feel like that actually led me to start to keep the promises that I make to myself. But throughout this journey, like I could, because I make my own schedule, I could have easily like wake up and be lazy in the morning and just like kind of, not get the things done because nobody other than myself is keeping me accountable. But I've been teaching myself and learning to like, when I say I'm going to get this project done or upload this video or upload this many videos every single day or every single week, I am going to do it. And so I think in the process of like me keeping the promises to myself within my fitness journey, and also keeping the promises that I made to myself within creating this career for myself, I've really started to value and I've really started to determine my own self-worth. And I think that's priceless, because when I feel good about myself, I can bring more good to the world. And when I feel good about myself, I can bring so much more value to people. And instead of me right now, for example, making this podcast, not wanting to share my failures, not wanting you to think anything negatively or anything bad about me, or really just focusing on, does that person that's listening to me right now, do they like me, or do they think I'm cool? Do they think I'm successful? Whatever. If I'm focused on what are you going to think of me, because I base my self-worth off of what are you going to think of me, rather than me coming from a place of like, I know I'm good enough. I know that I am worthy, and that all the failures and all the things that I'm dealing with, I know that I'm good enough. Because I have that self-worth right now, I can then instead focus on what can I share today that will bring you value, so that I don't focus on me and how are you going to like me. Instead, I focus on how can I share something today that is going to bring you value. And that just always feels so much more fulfilling than, wanting others to like you. And obviously I still have that in me. I think we all as humans do, but I definitely have grown my self-esteem and feeling of like worthiness throughout this journey and through these failures. The next thing I want to talk to you about is friendships and failures in like relationships or friendships ending. And I think that those two are incredible blessings, because we are who we are today because of those failures, because of those relationships, as well as all other failures and experiences that we've gone through in life. But I think oftentimes when a relationship ends, we see it as a failure, where I see it as a massive blessing because they taught us so much, regardless of how terrible it was to be in it. They just teach us so much about what we are willing to do moving onward with our life and what we are no longer willing to be a part of, or just like, what's it called in English? I'm Danish, so some words I'm like searching for in English. I guess you can just say what you're willing to be a part of moving onward in relationships, and how you're going to change and do better, both for you and for the person that you were in a relationship with. And I'm talking like friendship and relationships. And the example that I want to give for my own life today is actually a friendship. And I feel like I've had only good friendships in my life. Like both only good friendships, but also only good relationships, whether it be with my family or like romantic relationships. And friendships, I've only had good relationships. And I just want to make clear, when I say that I've only had good relationships in my life, that there has been a ton of challenges with family members in my romantic relationships. And just like, there's just been massive like conflicts in those relationships. But the reason I say that there's only been good ones is because I take full responsibility for whatever has been going on in the relationships, because I think that when two people have a conflict, it's 50% each. You are just as much a part of it as the other person. You're always like 50% as much in charge of like the conflicts that you face. And I really try my best to take full ownership for that, but also always coming from a place of understanding towards the other person. In the moment, sometimes when you're in a conflict, it can be hard to understand the other person because, you can't read what they're thinking in their mind. And I think oftentimes as humans, all we want is to be understood. And when we don't feel understood, we all have so many different childhood traumas that can lead us into patterns that maybe don't feel good to be a part of. But if you come from a place of understanding and you take full responsibility, I think there's always a way out. But I want to talk to you about one friendship in particular. This was with a friend that I really cared for, and we had had a lot of history, and this was the friend that I had the most fun with and I could relate the most to. We had the most things in common, and I really, really cared for this friend. We had so much fun, but we only had fun on the days where this person was in a good mood. And when the person was not in a good mood, I felt it would go out on me. And I take full responsibility because I could just leave the situation, or I could just, say, oh, let's just chat tomorrow. So it's equally as much my fault. But on the days where this person was not in a good mood, I would get treated in really, really not nice ways. And we don't need to go into specifics, but I like good vibes. I'm not a person that likes to argue or have negative vibes around me. And so it was this like conscious cycle of like, then that would happen. I'd be like, okay, well, I can't really continue being in this friendship with this going on constantly. But then the next day, maybe they would cheer up and then nothing was wrong. And then if I would try to like what happened, they would just like kind of like, make fun, and then everything would be back to normal. And, I cared so much about this friendship that I'd be like, okay, oh, well, it's okay. We're good friends again now. Like nothing, it'll all be okay. It won't ever happen again. But it just happened again and again and again and again. And I would keep being in this cycle of like being treated really nicely and then being treated really poorly. And I allowed that to happen for years. And eventually, at one point, when this had been going on for so long, I realized no more. And so I had never like broken up with a friend, and we didn't really break up. We just like kind of got out of touch, but it just got to a point where like it was just so bad and I could not do it anymore. And yeah, today we're on good terms. I only want the best for this person. Like I only want the best for them. Like I send them love. Like in my meditations, I'll often send them love because I just want the best for them, because I have cared for them. I'm saying them because I don't want to give away anything. I don't want anyone to be able to see or think of who this is. So I'm just saying them. And that's also why I'm not going too much into detail about the situations that we were in, because I just don't want, there to be any clarity about who that is, because I do deeply, really just want the best for them. But what I learned, for me, that was like a big failure because this friendship meant a lot to me. What I learned from this failure is priceless because I really learned something about myself in what moving forward I will and will not be a part of. And this dragged on for years. And today, because I've been through that, if I sense any form of toxic behavior like that, I send them love, but I move on. I cannot allow myself to be a part of anything like that again. And it just taught me such a big lesson about what I will and will not be a part of in my life. And I think that failure, it made me a different human in my relationships. Even in my romantic relationships, it like taught me what I can and cannot be a part of. And so that failure led me towards something beautiful as well, and some big lessons. And what I was talking about, like being a pleaser, that's something that I've worked on a lot. I tend to, like, because of childhood traumas, I don't want people to be mad at me. And so if I sense any form of like a person being in a bad mood, my natural instinct is to go and try to please the person in order to hopefully make them get in a better mood. But, you know, what you realize from some self-development books and therapy and stuff is that you are never in charge of someone else's mood. All you can do is be yourself and be loving towards them, but you cannot make them get into a good mood. You know, you can try. Obviously, there's different situations where you definitely can, but just like in general, if someone has mood swings as like a thing, or, you know, you can choose to step out of it. And whenever they are that way, then you can just leave the situation and say, hey, let's chat later, or do whatever feels right to you. But just pleasing someone in order to make them feel good and actually like taking on their negative energy, which is also something I did a lot in that relationship. I took on their negative energy and it brought me a lot of anxiety because I just didn't want them to feel that way about me. But really, it was more of a perception about how they were feeling on the inside. And that's also why I send them so much love, because people who are treating other people poorly, you know, they probably don't feel very good within. And so, yeah, just sending them love and then keeping your good natural energy instead of going into like wanting to please them, because I think you being you, me being me in a loving state is the best that we can do. This podcast has been a long one. I didn't actually touch on all the things that I wanted to talk about, but I think that this is enough for today, and we'll get back to the other stories sometime later. I wanted to share these stories because if you, like I mentioned in the beginning, if you right now are going through some sort of failure, something isn't working for you, or you've just had like a massive something, whether it's a breakup or you like losing a job or something that has let you feeling like a failure, or just like, what am I going to do with my life? Use it as a strength. You really can use that failure to your advantage and like bring up this power, this sadness, and use it for good. Use it for something that is of value in your life. Like use that to make a massive shift. Use that anger, that sadness to take massive action towards that thing that you deep down want. You may feel like right now it's a failure and that you're never going to get through this, but I so deep down believe that there's a reason for every single failure that we go through, and that it is there to lead you towards something better. And you may not know what that is right now. When I was going through these things, I did not know what it was going to lead me towards. But what I know for a fact is that my life would not have been this great. I would not have learned these incredible lessons. I would have not been the person that I am today if those failures had not come my way. And so today I am so grateful for them. Like I actually often write them down in my journal to remind me of how incredible failure is for my development in life. And my biggest belief in life is that growth equals happiness. When I am growing and evolving, that is what brings me the most fulfillment and joy in life. And I do think that it is like that for most people, whether we want to agree with it or not. That's just my belief. And it's okay if you don't have that belief, but use this failure that you're going through, or that you maybe will go through eventually, to your advantage. And a failure can also be something as little as right now or lately, I've put so much work into my YouTube videos. Like you have no idea, like Instagram, TikTok, podcast, simple, easy. I mean, I wouldn't say simple and easy, but compared to the amount of work I put into my YouTube videos, like it is on another level. I put so much work into them, but There's this thing called Google Analytics where you can go in and see how your channel is doing, how the growth is doing. And it's like this big thing within the YouTube world that every week when you upload a video, then it like ranks how well your video is doing. And every single video that I've uploaded recently has not been doing very well. And it's a challenge when you're putting so much work and effort and thought into creating these videos, but it hasn't been doing well. I used to make a ton of recipe videos, and these recipe videos, people love them because they're like delicious and low in calories. But I just for so long was aware that that is not the vision I had for my channel. And YouTube has like categorized me as like a recipe video channel. So I'm reaching people who are interested in recipes, but I so deep down want to create YouTube videos that have to do with growth and have to do with some way of like living and creating a better life for yourself. So I just knew that even though people love these videos, and I still do sometimes want to make recipe videos, I knew I needed to make a massive shift within my YouTube channel, which is requiring a lot more work for me, because making the recipe videos, it's so easy for me. I just film me putting a cake together and then I film that. Like that's pretty simple, where a video that has some sort of topic, storytelling, putting it all together. Maybe I'm shooting for a full week and then there's editing and there's like all these added effects that you have to put in and like things that you have to think about. So a lot more extra work, but all this extra work is not giving me the same result as a simple recipe video. But first of all, when I have an intuition feeling that I need to do something, which is something I felt for so long with this YouTube channel, that I needed to make a shift for me to feel fulfilled, but also to bring people the value that I actually think that I'm able to give them. I don't think that my true strength is creating recipe videos. I think my strength is more of like helping people on a mental level. At least that's what I feel that I'm called on this earth to do. And so even though it on the outside may feel like I'm failing with my YouTube channel right now because it's doing worse than it has done for a very long time, I know deep within that when I go through what some will see as a failure, I know that the greatest things are on the other side of that. And I'm sharing this because you may be working really hard towards something right now that in your gut feels right, but then you're also debating whether or not it's right because you may not be seeing instant results. If your gut or your intuition is telling you that this is the right path for you, I just hope and wish and dream that you keep doing it, because I think that for both of us, we will experience a life greater, and we will be able to help more people, and we will be able to just live out our full potential and purpose when we do follow that gut and that intuition. And we may not know what that looks like yet because we're not really, it doesn't look externally from the outside as if we're doing that. But if it feels right within, I think there's something to it. So even though it feels like you're failing, even though it feels like my YouTube is failing, even though I do have some incredible supporters on there, which I just feel so grateful for. So it even feels bad saying that I'm failing, because like there are some people on there that are watching, and I'm so grateful for that. Like that's amazing. But just to say that Google Analytics is telling me that I'm failing and that you should go back to making recipe videos because that's what people want to see, I still know deep within that I'm doing the right thing. It may just take some time, and great things take time, right? And failure has been my greatest gift in life. And it is all about the approach. Are we feeling sorry for ourselves, or are we going to do something about it? Are we going to take action on this instinct, on this gut feeling that we want to go for something that is greater, that we cannot even imagine yet? Phew, what a long episode. I hope you found some value in it. I hope that you are ready to take action on whatever it is that you feel like your gut is telling you to do, regardless of what failures you have been experiencing lately, because those failures really can bring out some power and some strength in you that you would not have been willing to take action on, been willing to put and sacrifice so much time and effort into if you had not gone through this failure. So please use it to your advantage. And you have no idea how many miraculous things that can lead to. I hope you go out today and reflect upon this episode. Thank you so much for listening. If you found some joy in this, if you know a friend that has been going through some tough times lately, please share this episode with them, or maybe even on social media. That would help me a lot. I'm trying to share this with as many people as possible. It would be amazing if you'd also hit that subscribe button. That helps me out a lot. And then you're notified every time that I post a new episode. And I would love for you to grow with me on this journey. I hope you have a beautiful day, and remember that to grow and to develop, you have to challenge your norm.